Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cassie with AABC, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Tab Talk webinar. I also want to thank our sponsor, Thermal Balance, for supporting our session today. A few items to cover before we get started. Our presenters today will hold questions until the end of their conversation, but we encourage you to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A button. If you happen to be experiencing any technical problems during the webinar, please use the chat function to inform the panelists so that our producer, Will, can assist you. This presentation is being recorded and it will be available for viewing in 1 week. In terms of continuing education credit, everyone in attendance for the full webinar will receive a certificate of attendance sent to their email within 24 hours. And finally, if you're a certified TBE or TBT, your CEUs for attending today will be automatically uploaded to your respective portal after the webinar. Our webinar today is the tab industry, where it's been and where it's going. I'm very excited to welcome our speakers for today, AABC's 2025 Modern Inductees to the Hall of Fame, Jay Johnson and Dan Ackery. I'd also like to welcome Jeremy Johnson, who will be leading today's conversation. Jay Johnson is a certified TBE and the Vice President of Thermal Balance in Kentucky. He served on the AABC Board of Directors from 2002 to 2016 and as AABC President from 2012 to 2014. Described as a wise and decisive leader, Jay guided the association through multiple difficult situations. In addition to serving on the board, Jay served on several other AABC committees, including the Quality Assurance Committee. Dan Ackery is a TBE and a CXA with Flood & Sterling. He served on the AABC Board of Directors from 2004 to 2018 and as AABC President from 2014 to 2016. He chaired the AABC ACG Guideline Committee and served as the first AABC Commissioning Group President from 2005 to 2006, making him the only person to serve as President of both AABC and ACG. Jeremy Johnson is an AABC certified TBE and ACG certified CXA with 24 years of experience. He's the operations manager for American Testing, Inc., a tab and CX provider in the Baltimore, Washington metro area, specializing in healthcare, biocontainment, laboratory, and pharmaceutical projects. Jeremy is also a current member of the AABC Board of Directors, serving as the Zone 1 Vice President. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here today. The floor is yours whenever you're ready.
You. Cassie, thank you so much for that. Jay, Dan, this is a great moment. First of all, congratulations on your induction. I was there firsthand. It was a very, very special moment, and I'm very flattered to be in the group here with you guys today, having our Tap Talk webinar about where it's been, where it's going. So, looking forward to it, guys, and we can dive right into it if you guys are ready.
Thank you.
So, when we talk about, history, we talk about careers, right? You guys have been inducted in the Hall of Fame. You guys, your credentials with the ABC and the industry, speak for themselves. And then diving in a little bit to the nitty gritty, talking about like the evolution, right? I mean, this period of time, evolution, the last 20, 30, 40 years has been a tremendous evolution for the industry, right? Between the two of you, Jay, you can lead off first. What is um, what is the biggest impact that you've seen as far as transition from analog tools, right? You guys can tell your stories with that. I got a little piece of it when I was coming up through, but obviously we've morphed into complex digital automation, Bluetooth technology, lots of different things, and everybody's got a different perspective on it. But what is a one fundamental of tab or anything that you feel like is relevant that, has remained the same despite all the changes in it, and maybe like a core thing that you guys believe in. So the floor is yours to Jay, lead us off and tell us how you feel about it.
Okay, yeah. After 47 years of doing this, it's funny because I can remember making hoods on the ping pong table in the basement with Dad back when there were flow rights and nothing more. There was the old manometer, oil-filled manometers, which I don't know if everybody even knows what those are anymore. But Dad called me one day and he said, "Hey, do you have your fluids book?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Listen, I'm down in the eastern part of Kentucky, and the oil drained out of my manometer, and I just would like to know if there's any fluid, the viscosity of some type of fluid that might be close to it." And I said, "Dad," I don't know." And he said, "That's fine. I'll use my bottle of scope. It's going to be good enough." So we always laughed about that, but yeah, the technology has changed, the equipment has changed, but I think the fundamental thing that you got to remember is that you need to understand the design and what you're trying to achieve when you're doing the balance work. That is that has remained a constant for us because at the end of the day, you're trying to put yourself in the mind of the engineers and what they're trying to establish. And so no matter how hurriedly you get, stopping, looking at it, saying, "Okay, this is what I have to do." So, but I think that's the fundamental line for us on what is the first thing, and that is understanding what is trying to be achieved.
Great perspective for sure. I love it. How about you, Dan? How you feel about it?
I agree with Jay. The goal remains the same, to try to achieve the design criteria that the engineer intended. Um, War stories, got plenty, but we used to use inclined manometers. We used velometers. There were no calculators. You did everything on a slide rule. That's how you just did your business. Along came Texas Instrument, and you could probably buy one of their battery operated ones for $400. Now they're available everywhere for a couple bucks. Far as flow hoods go, we started out with an analog flow hood. We went with Ernie Shortridge's hood, which his early designs of that, you could put it up to a diffuser and get 5, 6 different readings. So I called Ernie up and I said, "Ernie, I got a problem. I'm working a pharmaceutical plant. We've got pressure relationships. I'm getting multiple different readings when I put this up there. Which one should I use?" He said, "You use them all." I said, "Well, how do I report that?" So I think there's been improvements in the reliability of and accuracy of the instrumentation. Um, I think there was more science involved back in the 70s when I started. You had to make some just predictions, or I'll call them guesses. Is this right? Is that right? Until you finally ended up with a pitot tube traverse, which you could use to justify the K factors you were using. I don't think they use K factors anymore. I don't know. I've been out of balancing for 12 years or so. But I think the goal still remains the same.
Yeah.
Do your job, try to achieve design conditions, and if you can't, report why you can't.
I just got one follow-up question. I know Jay talked about with the hood box being wood. Dan, was your first hood box wood too that you worked on, or was that
No, no.
okay?
We
Okay.
we didn't start using the hood until we could purchase them.
Okay.
Uh, so they were analog though,
Gotcha.
and you
I've
had
heard the stories about the wood hoods from Pat Kelly and such, and I think the new generation probably shouldn't complain at all because that wood box does not sound fun at all to carry around.
Hey,
no.
Yes, sir.
Jeremy, I'd like to go back on that. Ours wasn't wood.
Okay.
Ours was made out of styrofoam. You could buy the 4x8 sheets, and we would cut and then we would take the sides and we take the black insulation, put around the top, and that's how we started right there. And they were huge. They were huge. Everybody drove a big van because they just, you take a 3x3, you can't get rid of it. It's just right there. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, they're your pioneers right there in the industry. I love it. I love it. All right, we're going to shift a little bit different, still kind of with like setting the stage and talking about, some of the past. One of the things that I think faces the industry is, getting people involved. Everybody's got a story on how you get involved. A lot of people stumble into the industry. I was one that stumbled into it. What is a specific moment or project that you realized TAB was going to be your lifelong career? And I think you guys have very conflicting stories, so I'm really excited to hear. How about you, Jay?
well, I would, mine is a different path. Dad started the company in 67, and my choices were very few on what I could do. Um, Besides mowing yards, this is all I've ever done. And I can remember going back in the 70s with Dad to projects. I didn't know hardly anything. And he fussed at me because my writing wasn't good. And that's back when we didn't have iPads and all that. You'd write everything down. And so it just was a progression that kept going. And even when I went to college, he knew that that was a good area for me. So he bid a lot of work down in there because he didn't have any expenses with me. And so it just kept going and going. And then, you know, once out of college, out of the field, coming back into the office. And, I thought this morning, I said, I took my TBE in 1986. So it was just, it was it. And so that's kind of how I got into it.
Dan, your story's not the same, I'm sure, is it?
No, it's not. I worked at a bank and I wanted to leave the bank. I was repossessing cars, and an incident occurred that I couldn't work there anymore because they just didn't have a heart. So a lady that worked there, I quit, and she said, they're looking for somebody at Flood and Sterling. Maybe you'd be interested. I said, where's the address? So I walked in the front door, and Audrey Rothrock was there. She used to be an old neighbor of mine, and Joe Flood was sitting at his desk. He said, come on over here and sit down. And, anybody that knew Joe, I mean, that was like an order. So I went over and I sat down. He said, I want to know one thing. Can you take a lawnmower apart and put it back together again and get it running? And I said, yeah, I've done it many times. He said, you're hired. So I came to work for him, went out in the field with George he was the engineer, PE in like 4 states. Brilliant man. So I just followed in his footsteps and troubleshot jobs, which is a huge education opportunity for anybody. If you can go with somebody that's got experience and troubleshoot jobs. I remember doing a dorm. It was a girls' dorm, multi-story. They couldn't get any exhaust out of the laundry room. So George comes along. He's got a Magnehelic gauge, pokes a hole in the duct, comes down a little further, pokes another hole in the duct, probably 4 or 5 holes. He said, go get me a wheelbarrow. I said, what? I went and found a wheelbarrow. I brought it over, bang a hole in that duct right there. So we did. Here, what happened was there was a water cooler up in the penthouse, and the guys would come and get a drink with little paper cups, and they would throw them down the duct. Well, they clogged up in that turning vanes all the way at the bottom, and they just wouldn't let the air go. But how he knew that, I was just intrigued, and I said, this is what I want to do. That's just one story. I can remember putting bricks in a duct because we didn't have a damper. And we just created a smaller effective area until we got enough brick in there that it worked. Now, is that up to code? No, but bricks don't burn either.
Sure. The garbage chute. That's a good one. That's a good one, Dan. I like that. Sounds good. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to the next part of it, and this is more of like the mastery of testing and balancing, what we call maybe the toughest nut, so to speak. Everybody that's been around a while, every veteran has one project that kept them up at night, lose sleep over. Um, Starting with Jay, what's your most challenging problem job or whatever you want to call it, and how have you eventually got to success, got to the other side of it?
I think the one that took me by surprise was when they started developing these underfloor systems, and some of them were constant volume, some of them were VAVs. Some of the engineers wanted actual flows on what I called the transfer grill, just in the floor grate, which was very difficult. But to me, understanding the complexity of that, and that also the floor cavity cannot leak. It has to be as solid can be. There were so many things in the evolution of those that nobody paid any attention to. And for us proving flows and trying to get air moved around, really gave me a lot of grief at the time. So that was my tough nut right there. So anyway,
I like it. I like it. Thanks for sharing. Dan, how about you? How do you, what's your toughest
Um,
nut?
I think all of us being, I've worked there 45 years. There's probably several projects that I would say were a headache. Um, One of them was a office building. Uh, Most people think, oh, that's an easy job. But for some reason, the engineer, um, he under horsepowered just about everything. So at that time, it was pneumatics, and we had inlet vanes on the fans. So I got with the engineer who I knew very well, and I said, I'd like to try something. I'm going to try and take out these turning vanes and see if it improves or whatever. We'll see what happens. Well, it improved 10% with the same horsepower by taking out that restriction. So then he said, well, do it to all of them. So I went through and took out the turning vanes on all of them. And I never had to go back to the job. It worked fine. That's just one of them.
Sure. Those hunters or those moments, right? I think that's they're hard to say why particularly you felt away or but the outcome obviously spoke for it, right? And that's great stuff. And that's what it's about, being the veterans in the industry that you guys are for sure. Good stuff, guys. Um, Moving on to the next part, the AABC has set the gold standard for independent testing, right? Looking back on your work with the association has lots of initiatives, right? We have continuing education, manuals, standards updates, right? We're constantly working. Our board currently is working on a lot. You guys have worked on a lot as well. Of those things that you guys have been involved with or seen or whatever, which one of those has the most significant impact of the future today that you guys feel? Jay, I'll let you lead off again. Keep
the continuing, when that first came out, I went, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, because you get busy, you
right.
get in the middle of something, and it's like, well, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. And then as we kind of researched and started putting things into place, the guys, the whole company kind of just said, I learned something today. Hey, I learned something today. And so, now it's at a different level, but which is good. But then the certified techs, I think that brought a different twist into things. It gives people a sense of accomplishment, and you try to value everybody, and everybody's right there together. But wanting to do better, wanting to learn, wanting to earn, and then being able to sit in a meeting and or send an email that has credentials behind it. I just think it's good for the company, everybody associated with it.
Message to the future, the owners on the call, get your tech certified. All right, Dan. Thanks, Jay, for sharing it. Dan, how do you feel about manual standard update, things that have happened in the industry that can have
I
impact on the
think,
future?
well, the fact that I think that we update our guidelines has to happen. I like the continuing education side of things. You give the guys an opportunity to learn something new. Um, as far as contributing to AABC, I feel proud that I was able to get involved with the commissioning side of things. I think it gave our companies better opportunities, to do commissioning and still remain independent. Um, and I think it helps the technicians because they better understand the DDC systems. And, if they didn't know it before, they're going to have to know it now if they're going to commission those controls. Just one matter of it. But we started out commissioning everything. I mean, from air compressors, anything that was mechanical uh, for several pharmaceutical companies. And we were doing all of our reporting on MS-DOS because Windows didn't exist. Neither did Microsoft Excel or any of those. So we were handwritten reports or MS-DOS. Very cumbersome, but you learn, and that's how you learn, and to be exposed to different things. Um, I think our technicians would vouch for that. The guys that were at Flood and Sterling, and I was fortunate enough that I was the youngest guy in the crew. I came in, the other guys had been doing it for years, and I just paid attention and just learned and learned as best I could. So as far as AABC goes, I don't think there's any better organization out there that does testing and balancing. None. And I was also TABB certified, but never used it. Joe Flood wanted us to go to Chicago and try that out, but they're allowed to do anything. They're not really independent, but AABC stands by it. I think a lot of other NEB firms, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but their independence can be whatever. But AABC is the pinnacle for me. It's the best there is.
Thank you, Dan, for that. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership and business aspect of things. You guys have had different paths, right? Different careers. You guys have focused on different things, navigated different things. Um, and as those differing perspectives you guys have, I'll start with Jay first. Um, how do you approach client relationships and project management, like anything business related that you have to kind of contribute to this conversation?
That's big. From being in the field in the 70s and the 80s, coming in the office in the 90s, you develop your clients by you just prove your worth to them there. I think you always develop a team atmosphere when you're bidding projects because they know exactly what you're going to bring to the table. And we never tried to disappoint, going the extra mile, staying late, working with them, working with the engineers on trying to get it done. Your clients see that and they want you to be on their team. And no, you're not an always low type guy for those that are bidding in the mechanical world, but it's just a way that they understand now. One thing that's changed is that since I was there, a lot of those have retired. A lot of those have moved on. So now we dealt with the sons or the daughters, and now we're dealing with the second generation. And so, a lot of things get lost over time. And but you just have to get out there and do what you're supposed to do, go the extra mile, and those calls, they keep coming, and those relationships stay tight. They really do.
Well said, Jay. How about you, Dan? What's your perspective on?
Well, as far as leadership in business, I had two of the best in Joe Flood and George Sterling. Um, couldn't ask for. I was very blessed to have them in my path. And Joe was the one who was. He used to work for a company called Nesbitt. They sold cooling towers and through the wall units before he got into the balancing side of things. I think in 1965. But he was a good salesman, and he made relationships. And basically, our business model was to work for owners. Um, Give them, just like Jay said, give them the extra mile. Stick with the job till it got done, and it got done right. And when you're on that owner's side, everybody is cowing to that person, whoever it is, because he's hiring the mechanical, he's hiring the control people. And if you're in his court, uh, you've got a trump card there that can come to your aid if you're not getting cooperation from, let's say, the control contractor. He's telling you lies. Well, you have a meeting with the owner and it gets straightened out, or the engineer. So that was our business model. It didn't always work out that way. And like Jay said, some of those relationships that you had built, they change because the guys retire and the new guys come along and they have a better idea or they have a better friend or whatever. Uh, that's when I started golfing because you get out, you do some golfing, you socialize a little bit, you go out to dinner, you have a few drinks. To me, that was part of doing business, and it kept those relationships strong. So that's just my spin on it.
Thanks for that. Kind of as a follow-up question on the business side of it, if you guys could, speak, directly to the firm owners, the tab firm owners listening today, um, what do you think the biggest mistake that they couldn't be making if you're a young tab company, when it comes to um, all aspects of business, but primarily like independence and integrity, right? When it comes to that stuff, because things have changed, things have gotten lost, I feel like. But is there a core principle or a message that you could give the firm owners, Jay?
It takes me back to a funny story. Dad, every time Christmas would roll around, Dad loved to go see the clients. And I mean to tell you, he'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time. He would load up, I'm going to say 50 hams that he has bought somewhere at the side of the road, and he would take them and deliver them. And it was just funny to see how he would stop in. He'd talk to him. He might take them to eat. He'd talk about their families. He'd give them a ham. They talk about last year. They talk about jobs, and he would come back with additional contracts on projects we didn't know we had. But he would just stop and take the time to listen. And I think we get so busy in today's world that we get an email, we take the job off, we send them a quote, we don't really talk to them. We might get a contract, we might not. We get so focused due to how busy we are. I think we lose sight of that sometimes. So, wanting to think what is the biggest mistake? Just talk to everybody. Slow down a little bit. Talk to these guys. Say, hey, man, I'm going to be over there. You want to go get lunch? And because, as important as this is, there's life going outside of AABC. And these guys just like talking to people. So just one avenue.
That's a great one. I definitely personally can relate to that. And maybe the gauge for, some of the younger people could be somebody that you frequent with, like, email correspondence with. Do you actually know what they look like?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that
True.
ultimately what it's about? Like, can you say, oh yeah, I know what that guy looks like. I might have not seen him for 5 years, but I know what he looks like. If you can't, maybe
True.
that's telling us something. Maybe I need to do something different too. So I appreciate that, Jay. How about you, Dan?
I think it's important that after the job is done, that you ask, how did we do? Were you satisfied with our performance? Is there anything we could do different? Um, and I think as far as your technicians, don't push them too hard. They get frustrated enough with the job than worrying about whether you're going to make money on it or not. Because sometimes the job, it's just terrible. It's a terrible job, terrible contractors. Your guy in the field doesn't have any control over that. He's going to need support. So go out and see what he's up against. Go meet with the people that are causing him headaches and see if you, as a business owner or a manager, can help him get through that job rather than leaving him there feeling like he's treading water.
Wow, guys, those were two great conversations for sure. I appreciate both you guys. We're gonna dive into the fourth part of this five-part chapter series we're doing here. So the next part I have up to bat here is the future and the mentorship. Kind of in line with what we talked about before with the firm owners, but this is about the next generation. And I think it's any surprise that there's been a shift in the workforce, right, in the United States. Um, what do you think? And I'm going to call it the soft skill. And the soft skill is going to be something that's not in a technician manual. What is a soft skill or a group of soft skills that do you think that the technicians today need to know? It's not in the manual. The X, whatever you want to call it. Jay?
Well,
We only have about 20 more minutes, so.
okay, I'll be quick. Yeah, I think it gets down to two things, and I think that work ethic a lot of times needs to be very strong. And as I told somebody the other day, if I do an interview, a lot of times, and you're going to laugh, but a lot of times I will walk outside and look at their car or their truck, because if they take care of that and they care about that, then they have it in them to care. And it's something you can't teach. If somebody doesn't care, you're never going to win it. So I know it's a simple way of looking at things, but it just helps me know, well, hey, this guy, this girl take care of their vehicle. We make sure they care, they do this. So that's work ethic and if they care. So those are two things that I really look out for.
Thanks for sharing that. Dan, how about you?
Similar along those lines. Again, it's almost going to be answering like I did before, is they need support. And I don't think our manual talks much about support from your office. A lot of technicians don't know everything for sure. So if they don't, somebody has to come alongside them and teach them whatever, pulley ratios, how to do a coil performance test, I think they need instruction for sure. And the integrity in the guy, he has to be on the job. He can't be sloughing off, leaving early, coming late, taking long lunches. He's got to have integrity that he's going to be earning his money. He's not entitled to it, and that's not in the manual either. But there's no entitlement in the tab business. You have to earn your way. You have to work hard and be honest. That's my spin on it.
Man, there's just some core principles right there, guys. I tell you, that's some good stuff right there. I'm drinking all that. That's great. Um, when it comes to your guys' legacy and your contributions to the Hall of Fame, right? You're here for a reason. And you guys are very modest people, and sometimes it's hard to say it, but sometimes it needs to be said. So I'm going to just ask the question. What is one thing, Jay, you go first, Dan second, we'll do as we've been doing it. What is the one thing you hope is remembered as your lasting impact with the AABC?
Back when I first got involved with AABC, Dad had a little statement. He said, "Son, it's one thing to say the Pledge of Allegiance; it's another thing to join the Army." And so that's when I kind of signed up and went on the board. And, that again, that work ethic, for a better word, of leaving it better than when you found it, has been in the back of my mind since I started. And I do hope that I have. I'm sure there's room for improvement, but that's kind of how maybe my contribution is.
I like it. How about you, Dan?
Um, I'm going back to the ACG again, and I was humbled when Joe Bumgardner asked me to go for the board. So they had an election, and I won, and I'm like, I was just humbled by that my zone one, would elect me to represent them on the board. And then when ACG came along, it was another thing, and I made so many trips to Washington D.C. I lost count, trying to hammer out the guideline for that. And uh, being on the committees, I enjoyed that. This doesn't happen by accident. AABC doesn't happen by accident. It happens because of hard work. It happens because you volunteer your time. And so if there's anybody out there that's listening, get involved, get on a committee, participate in improving it, whatever you can contribute. Have an idea, work. And it's gratifying and humbling to be part of AABC for me.
Sincerely, guys, that's it's great stuff to hear. Obviously, I'm in the middle of my tenure or beginning of my tenure to the board. So for me, it really hits home. But it's I've been involved with 3 years now, so I'm getting to the point where it's all right. I'm starting to see things, the middle of it, and moving forward. And you guys hit it right on the head about being involved, being engaged, leaving it better than you found it. And it's not just me, because my time is going to be gone before I probably know it. And it's about the future generations out there to get involved and to contribute to the gold standard, the best industry in testing and balancing out there. So I appreciate it. We're going to get into the final segment. Hopefully, we're going to have a little fun here with the tool of choice. So, quick question, Jay, Dan, if you were stranded on a job site and you only have one instrument, which one is it?
Well, after thinking about that, I'd like to say a gun, but I can't do that.
It's not an instrument, Jay.
But truthfully, if you go back and using the old flow right would get you way down the road, which I said, well, one instrument now, maybe a vein anemometer. Um, you could use your AKs on your grills. You could do a coil reading. You can get down the road a little bit. So that would be my answer.
Van anemometer, that's a good one. You still have yours in your office?
No, I've got them in the storeroom in there, and I know how to
Okay.
use them.
You're not
But the
letting them
guys,
go though. You're not letting them go, right? Hold
I'm not
on.
letting them go. No.
Okay, all right. How about you, Dan?
Well, my instrument probably a choice, old school, is an inclined manometer. Even though you have trouble with oil, like Jay was saying, sometimes they leak. You open up the case and the whole thing's flooded because you didn't
Uh-huh.
tighten down the ports. And the other problem you had with them was if it's too cold, you got to wait till they reach the temperature, and there's some issues with it. But you can always pedo traverse, and you can take a traverse of a big duct, small duct, doesn't matter. Exhaust duct, you can get accurate readings with it. So that would be my instrument of choice.
I like it. And there's a lot that can be done with these two instruments, that's for sure. I mean, there's a lot of newer stuff out there, but that's core stuff. And while the younger generations might not be proficient at it, I still believe that understanding where it came from is important too, right? Even if you're not using it on a daily basis, even if we know it, could be less efficient, right, than other instruments, everybody should still know the background of the instruments is my take. So we will not let those two instruments ever be forgotten as far as I can remember, guys. So I'll do my part and my diligence. All right, I promise you guys. Um, and the last piece of conversation that we have here is about advice. And it's about advice to a second or third generation owner trying to carry the torch forward. Um, I have it in today's economy. That's one factor, but I also would maybe just say today's quality, right? I was a moderator last year with Galen Richardson, and one of his biggest things that he has seen on the decline was the skilled labor and the quality that's out there, right? What quality you're getting on jobs. Um, so with those challenges of economy and quality, what advice can you give our second and third generation owners today, if you could?
That that's a little hard for me. I've always been told, don't forget where you come from and what it took to get there. And without sounding too much like an old record, Dad said, you can judge a person on what they do when no one's looking. And I think because we are the AABC and we can always defend the truth, that we need to remember, let's do the best we can and let's write it down. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, fine. But let's do the best we can. Let's be truthful in everything we do. And to the next generation, you got to keep that going forward. You got to keep that as a forefront because people will continually hire you.
Well said, Jay. Thank you. Dan?
Well, I think we were union. We hired out of the union, but most of the guys that came to work at Flood and Sterling stayed. They didn't move along anywhere. So we ended up with some guys that had the integrity, they had the hard work ethic. Um, and I always thought that it was really good that these guys just came in there and busted their butts. They went out, they worked hard. And when you find a guy like that, you've got to reward him somehow. You've got to treat him well. You got to give him a bonus and say, hey, thanks. You really did a good job this year. Treating your employees is really important. Treat them well. Just like I was treated really well. I was so blessed. And I tried to do the same with anybody that worked at Flood and Sterling.
Wow, that's great. Way to end our scripted preloaded questions here and answers. So it's good stuff, guys. Cassie, we're like 2 minutes early. I think we're doing pretty good, right?
Yeah, that was great. We've got a couple questions coming into the Q&A already, so we can get
Okay.
started there.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, couple audience questions coming in. So first off, someone asked, what are the most critical things that design engineers can learn from the tab industry?
Mm.
Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. I honestly think that we see hiccups every day that we get out there. We just see hiccups. And I've seen where the best way to handle that with designers is to engage them. See if they can come to the site and say, look, here's what we're experiencing. And I've always said I'm not perfect, and my wife says that too. But I just feel like if we engage the designers and just say, here's what we're experiencing, what are your thoughts? Because I think a lot of people will take the high and mighty road and say, well, you did this. This shouldn't be like this. Just this shouldn't be like that. And no, let's all work as a team. And if we do that, I feel that we develop an additional relationship with those designers by saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate them asking. I appreciate how they did that. And I've always tried to treat everyone that we work with that same way. Here's where we are. What do you think? So, my opinion.
I
That's
guess
good.
from my standpoint is I think we can teach engineers that everything's not perfect. You may have designed this to be perfect, but it's not. Here's why it's not. The balancing valves on the hydraulic water side, they're too big, or they're too small, or you're breaking the back of a fan. And I don't know that we relay that information back to an engineer sometimes. We just try to make it work, and he never knows the mistakes that he makes. And I'm not looking to throw him under the bus, but I think you asked the question about how can we help educate some of the engineers out there, and I think that's how you can. A lot of them are young; they're just out of college. They didn't have that learning curve yet. I was fortunate that most of the engineers that I worked with had been in the business a long time, and they I think they learned their own mistakes somehow. And most of the designs were really good. So that's what I feel about it.
Great question and answers. Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. A couple more. Let's see. This person asked, what do you feel helps the tab process the most on projects? They gave a couple examples. Design involvement, QA/QC from design or design phase commissioning, commissioning in general, anything like that.
Mm.
What was that
Um,
question again?
What do you feel helps the tab process the most on projects in terms of involvement from other areas? So commissioning or design involvement, general contractor involvement, things like that.
Thank you for that.
I feel like I said earlier, you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the designers trying to figure out what are they looking for here, because and it takes a little time. It's not handing a set of drawings to someone and say, there you go do it. You got to review it, you got to look into it, you got to understand. It takes a little bit of time up front, but you can get questions answered before you show up on a job and do something that might not be the way that they wanted it to be. So I've been on the front end with designers. Sometimes I feel a little uncomfortable where my knowledge is not of what theirs is at the time, and I end up sitting there like a bump on a log, going, yeah. But once it gets down to the general contractors, the construction managers, the mechanicals, I don't mind jumping in and giving my 2 cents worth.
How about you, Dan?
Well, from my perspective, here's a typical example. You got a high-rise building serving ductworks, serving vertically. The construction manager, he wants to fit out the building horizontally. So what you got to do is meet with the engineer and the construction manager and educate him on the fact that if you're going to do this, we need stubs out with dampers on them because we'll be having to go back and balance all those floors over and over and over again. So you help them to navigate what the construction manager wants to do versus what the design engineer designed. And you help them to either add some devices to accommodate that.
So, Cassie, I'll just interject maybe one just second here just to kind of piggyback on it. Um, when it comes to the communication part, right, I think that's kind of like a common theme. I think Jay, you hit on it right, pretty hard with communications. Um, Obviously, as technology shifts, you got text messages, emails. Where's phone calls at? Where's reaching out, communicating with people? Like, have we lost that too? Do you feel like too sometimes, like a good old fashioned phone call? about something too. And I know we live in a CYA world and we always want to cover ourselves, but give me something there with a good old phone call. I know you guys got something with that, right?
I don't. The biggest thing that I see is taking a, like Dan said, a 10-story building, multiple air handlers, VAVs, hot water, all the above, fin tubes, you name it, and then sitting in a meeting and the architect might say, okay, well, you've got 2 weeks to get this done. And sometimes I get the email where I'll turn around, and that's when I'll pick up the phone and I'll go back through the channels and say, guys, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't know where that was generated. And sometimes it's the construction manager. So they will get my call in that situation because it's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't have enough people, and you're not going to have it ready. And so we're just going to have to work through this in a different way. Well, we're going to turn this floor on and this floor on, but this floor not. And that gets back to what Dan was saying, where, well, I can't do the hot water until it's all done. And so you do have to make those calls. You have to sit in those meetings, and you just have to be polite and just say, guys, it doesn't work like that. It's not like I'm painting the wall. I'm not doing that. So
Thanks for that. Dan, any follow up? Are we
No,
good?
I totally agree. I mean, I think we old soldiers, Jay and I'm a little older than Jay by a couple years, but yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot, learned a lot, but it all boils down to getting involved in the project early, making communication with those people, going to early meetings is always important. Finding out what their plan is, and is it going to be possible from a balancing standpoint, and who develops that time frame? Who's saying 2 weeks to get this job done when you can say we're real early in the project? No, it's going to take 2 months. And they'll say, what? We don't have that much time. Well, you're gonna have to make that much time because that's how long it's going to take. We'll get more men here. And my analogy was always, you got a 2-man canoe. You can't put 8 men in the 2-man canoe. So let's work something out here where we can compromise. But if you don't do it early and they give you a call saying, hey, the job's ready, you need to be done in 3 days. Well, you're way behind the 8 ball. So I would suggest spending the time and money to get there early. Talk to whoever you have to talk to find out what the game plan is. What's the schedule? What if the schedule slips because of weather? Find all those things out and then tell them truthfully, from your perspective, how long it's going to take to do your job.
Dan, I am stealing the 8 men in a 2-man canoe. I'm taking that with me out of this. I'm sorry. Thanks for sharing. I love it. I love it. Cassie, sorry, we're on a tangent here.
No, this is great. Thank y'all for such great conversation. Um, Talking about technological advancements and things, do y'all have any thoughts on where TAB is headed with the inclusion of more modern technology, artificial intelligence, things like that?
Do you know how old I am? uh, I, I wouldn't know how to answer that question. You saw how hard it was for me to get on Zoom. So maybe Jay can. He's still in the office.
you know, AI. I have, and I know a lot of people that are on this right now listening have been into maybe a mechanical contractor's office and have seen where they have that quick pin and they're taking off pipe and duct and da da da, and it goes back into the program. And I thought to myself, you know, how would AI be in the tab world? And it's just so diverse. Meaning, if you were going to use it as a takeoff tool, and you've got chill beams, you've got VAVs, you got fan power boxes, You got maybe just a reheat coil. You've got so many different angles, but with the common denominator with AI is you have to give it some type of basis of understanding. You can't just say, I'm going to do a hospital, and with that hospital, you're going to have chill beams. No, you're going to have fan power. No, you're going to have VAV. You could have a hodgepodge of everything in there. So I haven't seen anything per se in the AI world for us yet. Now there are, like Dan said, and I'm right here with him, there are a lot of smarter people out there in that world that probably can figure that out. But technology has the big changes. I'll be honest, coming out of the field in 87, 8, 9, and coming in the office, I stopped doing all the stuff that I was doing. Then I got into the management side and hiring and buying equipment and all that. And the one thing that I noticed was, since I have sold the company to another guy that worked with us forever, I have been back into the duct testing world. Well, the duct testing world back in the early 80s was a dolly that you'd buy at Granger. It was a fan that you'd buy and mount to the dolly, a blast gate that you put on the inlet, and then a manometer. And that's what you did. And it wasn't a lot of SMACNA testing. It was 0.5% at 6 inches. It was a little bit different at the time. Today it's surface area, but now I'm going out in the field and kind of doing a little bit of duct testing again, which I enjoy. But now, here is a fan on a frequency drive. Here is a meter tied to that fan that reads direct CFM. You can dial in the pressures. You can ramp your fan up and down. And it's like, holy crap, where was this? And it is awesome now that you can get in there and within 1 minute, dial in your pressure, see your leakage, and you're off to the races. So, technology, and, along with Short Ridge and all the other ones, Evergreen, that have just changed I went out and helped a guy balance a job the other day, and he said, "You don't have to hold that, Jay." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, it's a magnetic. It'll stick that." I went, "Holy crap. What?" And so there's just so much out there these days that we never had. We were holding up a heavy hood. It was a heavy hood. So anyway, just my opinion.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
All right, we'll wrap up with one more from our prepared list. I'm curious, y'all talked about advice for other people. I want to know, what is one of the best pieces of advice you've received that you'd want to pass on?
Well, never stop caring about what you do. Always keep that in the background, and it'll take you through life too. But if you just have that as a backbone in you, you're going to be fine moving forward.
Well, for me, if you're not early, you're late. So I was just taught that, from Joe and George and the guys I worked with. If you were supposed to be somewhere at 7 o'clock or leave at 5 a.m., whatever it was, you better be there. And I probably wasn't that good at it because I hate getting up in the morning. But I learned real quick that that's what you have to do. You have to get up early, get going, be committed to the guys you're working with just as much as you would anybody. Just be there for them, be there on time, work until they say stop working, and hopefully you don't fall asleep on the way home because you've worked 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever. But the guys I worked with passed that along to me, and I'm hoping that the guys that are there now think the same. You know, if you want the next job, you got to do this one right.
Well said. Jay, Dan, it has been an absolute honor doing this with you guys. I hope to see you guys soon. It's been great. I appreciate everything you've done for the organization and the time you spent today, guys. Appreciate you.
Yes,
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jay.
Jeremy.
thank you all so much. That's a wrap for our webinar today. Thank you all for Jay, Dan, and Jeremy for a valuable discussion, and to Thermal Balance for sponsoring. And thank you to everyone for being in the audience today. We hope you found this session insightful and inspiring. Before we wrap up today, I want to encourage you all to mark your calendars because the 2026 AABC annual meeting will be taking place at the Henderson Beach Resort in Destin, Florida from Tuesday, October 13th to Thursday, October 15th. It's a slightly new meeting pattern this year, so make note of that in your calendars, and more information on that will be coming soon. With all that said, thank you all again. Thank you for being here today. Stay well, and we hope we'll see you at the next Tab Talk webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.